Hey guys, this is Tom from Tom Built Stuff, and today I want to go over this coaxial installation toolkit from Klein Tools. Okay, so here we are with Klein's VDV011852 coaxial installation toolkit. And for full disclosure, I did receive this toolkit free through my participation with Home Depot to do a review. Although I'm not required to make a video review, I did want to review this for my website to include it up on there too for inclusion with my structured media project. This does have a lot of stuff you'll need for working with coaxial F cables. Let's just go over everything comes with. Comes with this cable cutter, which is model 63020. These are actually made in the USA. It's really nice cutters. Has your coax stripper. This is the coax stripper. It's VDV0110-081, and these are Klein's compression grippers, VDV212-008, and then it also comes with this nice little carrying case which has a belt clip on the back, easy to put on your tool belt or your belt, and then you have what you need to terminate F connectors on your coax cables for your project. Nice little handy kit. What I like about the kit is, even though these cutters have this locking tool in here, you just stick them in here and they'll stay closed, so they don't take up too much space. What I'm not thrilled about is there's this depth gauge on the back of the stripper tool, and when you put that in the case there, it winds up going to the open position, which I don't know if that was done intentionally or not, but it just means you have to remember to close it when you're stripping. And then we have the crimper tools, and then we'll go through what each tool does and what you'll use it for. First, we obviously have our cable cutters. It's a nice set of cable cutters. It has this curved blade for cutting copper. There's this small little circle here for steel wires, which is just like a guillotine type cutter, and this anvil cutter. For coax, you're going to be using this curved cutter. There's a few other things on here. These holes for bending wire if you're working with, I guess, Romex or any electrical cable and you want to put a bend in it, you'll stick it in there. Has this hole here. These bolt cutters for 632 and 832 thread bolts, which are the machine screws you'll get with electrical boxes if you need to trim them to size. It does have this lever here which locks it in place, spring action, so they open on their own and you just squeeze to cut, and they cut coax really easily. Here's some RG6, and I'm just going. This is actually a commercial electric RG6, just regular RG6. You could get at Home Depot. Cuts it easily. It does leave the end a little oval, like pretty much every other cutter will do it, and you'll want to squeeze it with your thumb and forefinger. And they're just cutters, Not much to say about them. They work really well. They're made in the USA. Klein makes really good hand tools, so I expect these to last a long time. Next we have the stripper. This is a great stripper. For most of my structured media project, I was using this really cheap stripper that, I mean, it worked, but you needed to adjust it for different types of cable, different sizes of cable, and if you didn't have it adjusted right, it wouldn't strip properly. It wouldn't take off the insulation. It would take off all the insulation. It would cut off the end. It would leave little bits of the braided shielding long, and it'd get wrapped up along the center conductor, which would short the cable, which doesn't work out, which is not a great thing to have. And then we have this, which doesn't need any settings. It'll work with RG59, RG6, RG6U. You could switch brands of cable in the middle of your project, and they could be, like they often do, slightly different dimensions. And this will work fine. I've tested it with a few different cables. I'll go through it right now on a few different cables, but I've found that it works really well. And to use it, all you need to do is you close this depth gauge, and what this does is it stops the cable at the right location, so that if we have it open, the cable will pass right through. But we close it here, and then it gives us the right length once we strip the cable. It has this thumb hole in the back where you put your thumb, and then on the front there's this plunger which you'll squeeze, which opens up the area where you put the cable. So we'll slide the cable all the way to the back till it touches that depth stop, and then just let go of the plunger. And now it's squeezed on there, the cutters are on there, and what we have to do is just twirl it around, and I like to go a couple times one direction, a couple times the other way, and that's mainly because of the last cutter I was using, which would leave the braided shielding too long. It wouldn't cut the braided shielding necessarily all the time, and it would keep it from wrapping around the core, so that if that was a problem, then it would be easier to fix with my hands. And then you just pull it off, and we have our nicely stripped coax. There's no extra shield running on the main center conductor, and we're ready to terminate it. And this was RG6. This is actually the cable that Dish Network had used before I stopped using them. This is their commercial grade cable. Strip that just fine. When you're done, you'll want to squeeze the plunger and knock out the bits of cable that were still there. Alright, now let's try this cable. This is the commercial electric RG6 cable from Home Depot. Again, we'll put the depth gauge right there, squeeze the plunger, and insert the cable. And then just go forward, and then I like to go back a couple times, and you'll feel it ease up a little bit, and you'll know when it's done. And then just pull it out, and again, nice clean cut. These are, I don't know, it's hard to tell if they're exactly the same thickness, but there's probably some variation. But we went from one cable to another without having to make any adjustments in the stripper, and we have a nice, the right amount of cable sticking out, the right amount of insulation. Okay, now this is the RG6 quad shield that I've been running through my home. Have the end snipped off. Just going to clear the bits from the last cut. Same thing. Put my thumb in the back there. Squeeze the plunger with the depth gauge in the back, and then slide the cable. Make sure it goes all the way to the back. You could see it hit the back there. See a little bit of the cable. I don't know if you can make it out. Oops. There you go. See a little bit of white from the cable. And then once that's back there, just release the plunger. Go a few times one direction. It really just takes 4 times one direction, but like I said, out of habit, I like to go back and then pull it off. And again, nice clean cut. There's no extra long bits of the shielding that's wrapping around the conductor. And that was RG6 quad shield, which is thicker than the first 2 cables we did. Now let's try RG59. This is going to be thinner than the other cables. So let's snip off the end, square this off, get rid of that extra bit of stripped off cable. Put the depth gauge back in, squeeze this, and make sure we have the cable going all the way to the end. Let go, and we go around 4 times, back a few times, and then just pull it out. Here we go again. Nice clean strip, right amount of cable let. There's no shielding wrapped around the center core. And then the other thing is there is a little bit of a notching, a little bit of cutting into the center conductor, a little bit of scratching, I guess. But it's not so much that it's going to jeopardize the integrity of that. There's still plenty strong, and it's not going to snap on us when we make our connections. Let's see, do I have any more cable? I thought I had one more RG59. Let's see. Now this is another brand of RG6, so let's try that. Then clear the bits, squeeze, make sure it comes out the back, hits the depth gauge, couple times forward, couple times back, pull it off. Nice clean cut. We haven't lost all the braiding. And we still have our copper conductor at the appropriate length. Alright, so now let's actually make a connection. Use the compression clipper. I'm going to use the, this is just RG6. This is a Coaxial that I'm using throughout my home. These are some weatherproof compression connectors, Type F connectors that I found, which I used in the past outdoors because I was having issues with Dish Network, and just in the weather. Anyway, that's not really important, but I have these connectors, which are pretty neat, which are good for weather. So you take the connector and you just slide it on until you get a little bit of insulation there sticking up towards the top. And we take our crimper and then make sure there's a hole here in the crimper, and the wire, the conductor from the F cable needs to go in there. And then squeeze that in there. Because of the rubber boot, I had to squeeze it in. And then just squeeze the crimper until it locks the cable in place. And now that's not going anywhere. And this works really well with this conductor. And I assume it would work well with the Klein conductors, which are a bit longer. But let's try it with these other connectors that I use. Let me strip this cable again. I'll put this type of connector on there. Put that there, slide it in, and then crimp. Now the problem here though is it doesn't really work with this shorter connector. Both of these V areas should compress. And this will hold and should provide a weather-tight connection, but it doesn't really give you the strength that you want. And this is the other compression connector I use, also Klein. This is VDV011852. This is the one I've been using for my project, and I absolutely love this. It's built like a tank, kind of heavy. You don't want to drop it on your foot, but it's adjustable. It has this wheel here. You can put it in or out. It has different back ends so that you can use different types of connectors depending on what what fits. And for this I'll be using just these settings here, and this will crimp it the rest of the way. And that gives us a nice type connection. So back to the Toolkit. Toolkit is great. Has everything you need. But the only downside, the cable cutters will work with any cable. The strippers will work with any RG59, RG6, RG6 double shield, RG6 quad shield. The only downside is these compression crimpers. They're only going to work with certain types of compression fittings. And if you don't have those compression fittings, you might be in trouble. It will work with longer fittings than this, but these are the ones I have, and I have bags of them. The Klein fittings are going to be much longer than the ones I have, and those, you would assume that they would work with their own tools. And this is already crimped on there. This is, again, I think this is Dish Networks. These are the crimpers they use. So yeah, you could use this with these style of fittings. I guess, yeah, these work fine. The ones that Dish Network uses. So it's a good toolkit as long as you're using the right fittings. I don't know if it'll work. It's the label says just for type F connectors. So if you're doing audio work, I don't know if you could use BNC connectors or other types of coaxial connectors that you might have compression fittings for. Whereas this VDV011852 will work with pretty much any type of compression fitting out there, though this is a more expensive crimper than this. So that's the downside. If you use this, then you have to be more selective of the fittings you're using. I got this after I purchased all my other tools for my installation, so that leaves me in a position where this isn't the most useful thing for me. But as long as you understand what this can do, then you could choose your connectors appropriately. I'm still in luck because I have this crimper. Unfortunately, there's no way to fit this in the tool case, which would have been great because I really love this crimper. This one works fine. It's not as heavy duty as the other one, but it will do the job. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I haven't been making a lot of videos yet, but you can find a lot of great articles on my site that cover building cabinets and drawer boxes, closet organizers and other furniture and DIY projects, some home improvement tips, tool reviews, and information on structured media wiring, so please check out tombuildstuff.blogspot.com, linked in the description below.